The next thing to show you is how to quickly fill in data inside of your Excel sheets. When working with data inside of Excel, sometimes it can be really time consuming to manually fill out data in a bunch of different rows. For example, if you wanted to populate a calendar date one day for each one of the rows here, this would be a very time consuming manual task. Fortunately for us, Excel has some really quick ways to autofill that data. To get started, let's create a new sheet by clicking on the plus sign down here at the bottom to create a new sheet, and let's go ahead and rename that sheet because it's a best practice, and let's call this Population Demo. Next, let's go ahead and create a new column header here, and let's call this Row, and let's label the next column called Date, and then we'll do another one called Previous Date. Now in row 2, let's go ahead and start entering in some data. For the data in the date column, let's go ahead and set this to 2024-01-01. We'll go ahead and hit enter on that so we're no longer in the active cell, and then what we want to do is we want to fill this data all the way down for a bunch of different rows. To do this, we'll click back on our cell, and then we'll point our cursor to the bottom right-hand corner here, and then what we're going to do is drag this all the way down. We can see here when we do this for a few rows, it populates the next dates in consecutive order. But what if we only wanted to populate the next month and we didn't want to do it for every single day? We can do that by going to the third row here, and then for the date, we're going to set this to 2024-02-01 for the month of February. Now what we can do is highlight the second and the third row, and then grab that bottom corner of the third cell, and we can drag it down. Now we have Excel auto-populating based on the month instead of populating based on every single day. Next, let's try to do this with the previous date column, but this time we're going to use a formula. If you're new to a formula is just a set of rules that Excel is going to follow to populate a value inside of one of these cells. In this case, what we want to do is return the value from the previous month. For example, in this case here, when we're looking at row number 3 and we have this previous date field, we want it to go grab the value from row 2 in the row 2 date field. To populate this value, we can simply click on cell C3 and then we'll type in the equal sign. If we look at the top of the page here, we see that something has changed, and this is where we're going to see our formulas or our formula values being displayed. If we look at the top of the page here, we can see that something has changed. This is displaying our formula bar, and that's where our formula or our values are going to show up. Let's keep our eye on that bar as we go ahead and perform the next steps. What we want to do for the next step is we want to finish typing out a formula that Excel is going to use to figure out what value they want to place in C3. In our case, what we want to populate here is the value from cell B2, so we can do this one of two ways. We can either type in B2 or we can click with our mouse on cell B2 and it will auto-populate that. Next, we'll hit the enter button, and you can see here that we get the desired results. Now let's click back on cell C3 and look at the formula bar again. As expected, it still says that it has equal sign B2 being displayed in it. If you wanted to change this value, you could go in here and you could simply have it say equals B3, and that's going to select the value from cell B3. Obviously, this is not the desired result, so let's go ahead and click back in there and let's set it back to B2. Now that we have the desired formula in there, we can simply click on that cell and we can drag it down, and that's going to go ahead and populate that formula all the way down for the other rows, just like we did with the other dates. But what if we didn't want Excel to actually change the formula every time we put in a value and we were to drag it down? In this example, let's go ahead and create a couple new columns. We'll go over here to column D and we'll name this one units. And then in column E, let's create another label here for % of total units. We can pick some arbitrary numbers such as 1 and 2, and then we can go ahead and select that and we can drag down. Now in this other column, let's go ahead and let's try a new formula, and this is going to be the sum function where we sum up the values that we see inside of a certain set of cells in Excel. In this first row after our data, let's go ahead and type the equal sign and then the word sum and then an open parenthesis. Then we can take our mouse and we can select the cells that we want here, and then we can go ahead and hit enter. What this did is it summed up the values inside of that range of cells that we had selected. If we click on that cell and then we look back at the formula bar, we can see that it looks a little bit different. What we're seeing here is the cell value of the first cell in the range, and then we see a colon, and then we have the last cell in the range. This is sort of a shortcut inside of Excel, so instead of having to tell Excel to add up one column plus another and click all those individual cells, you can have the starting cell, the ending cell, and that is the range that we're going to sum across. Now what we want to do is go back over to column E here and look at row number 2. What we're looking to do is calculate the number of units sold for row 2 and divide that by the total number of units that were sold across all of the rows. More specifically, this means what we want to do is we want to take the value of D2 and divide that by the value in D14. When we write that into our formula in E2 and hit enter, we get the result that we expected. But if we were to drag this formula down to all the other rows, we see that we have a problem. When we drag this data down, Excel changed the formula in the formula bar, so on row 3, what it's doing is it's taking D3 divided by D15, but that's not what we wanted. What we wanted is to have D3 divided by D14, and when we drag that formula down, we wanted it to lock D14 and not change that value. To fix this and not have that formula auto-update in Excel when you drag the formula around, all we need to do is put a $sign in front of that row number. In this case, what we want to do is have that equal sign D2 divided by D $14. When we edit that in our formula and then we go ahead and hit enter and then drag it down, we can see that we're getting the expected results now.